Paris, gay Paris, the fabled city for lovers, l'amour, the arts, romance. But there's another side to Paris, a side of mystery. My name is David Copperfield, and as a magician, I've been fascinated with the strange legend of the phantom who haunts the Paris Opera House. Ever since I can recall, I've shared the phantom's great passion for magic and illusion. And the phantom has always been my favorite movie character. The first, the greatest movie phantom was, without question, Lon Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces. Chaney was a legend in his own right, and the phantom was arguably his greatest role. This famous scene from the first Phantom movie, where Lon Chaney is unmasked by Christine Day, the woman he's obsessed with, has terrified moviegoers all over the world for over 60 years. This extraordinary 1925 silent picture has spawned at least 5 movie remakes, and its influence is plainly seen in the current, hugely successful stage musical in London and New York. I saw this movie as a kid, and I remember being both terrified and fascinated at the same time. Towards the end of the film, there's one of the great movie chase scenes of all time, in which the Phantom, having kidnapped Christine Day, hurtles through the streets of Paris, chased by the Parisian mob. In 1943, Claude Rains reprised the Phantom. This time as a pretty sorry, pathetic little man who gets fired from his post with the opera orchestra. Being cruelly disfigured by acid thrown in his face, in this version, Claude Rains wore the mask that was to become the trademark of the Phantom. These varied interpretations all share a common theme: to arouse our deepest sympathy in the Phantom, a man brought back to the threshold of humanity by his doomed love for the beautiful Christine. And in the most recent appearance of the Phantom, in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Broadway musical, Michael Crawford's extraordinary makeup takes over 2 hours to put on before each performance. The French writer Gaston Leroux was the first person to pursue the Phantom legend. In 1911, it was Leroux who brought the Phantom story to light in his book, The Phantom of the Opera. Leroux wrote a classic tale of Gothic horror, one that stands on a par with Dracula and Frankenstein, but with one noticeable difference. Leroux claimed the Phantom story was based on fact. The story tells how the Phantom was obsessed by a beautiful rising opera star, Christine Day. She, in turn, loved a dashing young nobleman, Raoul. The Phantom, crazed with jealousy, kidnapped Christine, an act of frantic desperation that resulted in tragedy, death, insoluble mystery. Leroux claimed the Phantom constructed a whole network of secret passageways within the walls of the great opera building. By means of countless unseen trapdoors and hidden entrances, the Phantom was supposedly able to live concealed inside the opera house for decades, invisible to the 1,500 employees who worked there. Some people still maintain that the Phantom continues to haunt the opera. They claim that anyone who dares to reveal the secret of the Phantom may face great peril. While you're used to seeing me perform feats of illusion on television, tonight I won't be the one performing the magic. The magic and the mystery is provided by the Phantom. Tonight, in the locations where the events took place, the Phantom's own lair, the great historic Paris Opera House, I want to take you on a journey into the Phantom legend, a journey that invites mystery, fantasy, and even potential danger, as I attempt to reveal the secret of the Phantom of the Opera. As I began my journey, what I knew of the Phantom came from the movies, and of course, Gaston Leroux's book. Nothing, however, had prepared me for the daunting scale of the Phantom's lair, the opera building itself. Faced with its sheer size, I began to believe that maybe it was possible for a man to conceal himself inside there for years, a possibility I was eager to explore. The Opera House is the largest theatrical building in the world, 17 stories high, 7 of them below street level, which was said to belong to the Phantom. The moment I stepped through the door, it struck me that a character like the Phantom naturally belonged here. It's the perfect setting for a blood-curdling tale of Gothic horror. It immediately brought back to me the great staircase scene in Chaney's version of The Phantom, one of the first color sequences ever filmed, where the Phantom makes a startling entrance into the masked ball as the Red Devil and terrifies the elite of Paris. As I stood here, it was hard to believe that beneath my feet, down in the lowest depths of the building, 7 floors below, there was actually a huge lake, fed by an underground stream. This was no ordinary theater. The French Emperor, Napoleon III, ordered the opera built in 1861 to glorify his empire. Napoleon's reign collapsed in the grim tide of war and revolution. The uncompleted theater found itself in the front line of battle. The real events that produced the Phantom myth were far more frightening than any Gothic fiction. I wanted to see some of the actual places which featured in the Phantom story. But rather than torture the night watchman with my schoolboy French, it seemed a good idea to find my own way. The deeper I wandered, the more eerie the building felt to me. When the opera finally opened, it soon became the cultural focus for a Parisian high society. The rebellion had been crushed. The war was over. Somehow, the grisly events at its birth seemed to haunt the building even now. Suddenly, a voice came from nowhere. I had been told I had the theater to myself. It was strange. The voice had a haunting sound, as though it belonged to the past, as though it were trapped in here. The music seemed to be coming from every direction. It seemed to be seeping out of the walls. For some reason, the singing was clearer outside this one particular box. It was almost as if someone was singing directly behind the closed door. The great theater was empty. There was nothing, no one performing, no sign of anything. The music. Where does it come from? That music, don't you hear that?
Monsieur, the theater is closed for the season. There is nobody here.
But there has to be someone making that sound. And you didn't hear a thing, huh?
Monsieur, be careful.
The singing had gone as mysteriously as it had begun. Now the silence gave the building an air of menace. But I was determined to find its source. I swear I could feel or sense the presence of someone in the shadows, watching. I wondered, could the voice I heard have belonged to Christine Day, the singer of the Phantom Kidnap? I know this sounds bizarre, but I almost expected to walk into the Phantom in the flesh at any moment. Christine Day. This was the young singer the Phantom abducted in LaRue's novel. The victim of the Phantom's crazed, obsessive love. The woman he killed for. The woman, in all likelihood, he killed. It saddened me to think the picture must have been taken within weeks, perhaps even days, of her tragic disappearance. Somehow I knew this had to be her room, when she was alive. Incredibly, it was as if nothing had been changed. It felt as if I'd stepped back 100 years in time. Faust, the opera score, her opera score. I remember she played the lead role, Margarita. It was uncanny how everything was exactly in its place, as it would have been had she been alive. Once again, I could feel someone or something watching me. It was her, Christine, the girl in the photo. Raoul, that was the name of her fiancé, back more than 60 years ago. She had that haunting, lingering look of somebody from another era. And then, without another word, she was gone. I was reminded of the scene from the Chaney movie, where Christine disappears through a swivel mirror into the Phantom's world. I had no idea where I was or what I had witnessed. I didn't even know what year I was in, or even what century. The eyes staring at me had that fixed, awful, glazed look of death. I noticed this livid red mark like a rope burn around his neck. Just like Christine, he was dressed in clothes in the style of 100 years ago. First, Christine Day, who appeared and then vanished before my eyes.
And now this.
I was beginning to wonder if I was going crazy. Things were happening so fast, my imagination was in overdrive. I didn't know what to expect next.
Gaston Leroux. Monsieur?
Now I knew I was crazy. Gaston Leroux, the author of The Phantom of the Opera. He'd been dead at least 60 years.
Monsieur, you believe in ghosts?
I think I'm starting to.
Ah, an American. You would agree with me, as one skeptic to another, of the singular unlikelihood of a ghost removing the evidence of his crime?
He started asking questions about a noose. Wanted to know how it had disappeared, if I knew where it was.
There is no sign of a noose anywhere. It is vanished into thin air. Why, monsieur? Ask yourself why.
I suddenly remembered a scene where the Phantom supposedly murdered a harmless stagehand.
Are we to presume the dead man got up and concealed the evidence himself? Oh, monsieur? Of course not. Then why would a ghost wish to destroy the evidence? To avoid going to hell? Bah! Mark me, monsieur. The Phantom of the Opera is no ghost, but a living human being made of flesh and blood, same as you or I.
I hardly heard a word he said. I kept thinking, how could I be speaking with a man 100 years back? Somehow I'd slipped through a loophole in time, impossible as it seemed.
In my book, soon to be published, monsieur, I shall present unequivocal proof that the Phantom exists. That he is not, as has long been believed, a creature of the imagination of the artists, the superstition of the management.
When I started to think about it, I couldn't understand why the Phantom would want to kill a simple stagehand. It didn't make sense.
No doubt the poor unfortunate stumbled upon the Phantom by chance. I have long believed that somewhere in this vicinity is to be found the hidden route to the demon's lair. Forgive me, monsieur, may I ask what an American tourist is doing in this part of the opera?
I think he was hoping I'd seen something, some tangible proof to link the Phantom to the stagehand's murder. I'd like to find out more about the Phantom.
Oh, one must make provisions for the guests of one's country.
Incredibly, I found myself on a conducted tour with the Phantom's prime investigator, Gaston Leroux, in person.
I have sent someone for the gendarme, monsieur. The Phantom has them all deadly afraid. Down here, he is the emperor. You are fortunate, monsieur. I, Gaston Leroux, know more about the diabolical madman who resides here than any living being, including the extraordinary and fantastic tragedy that excited all Paris.
That's the tragedy of Christine Day, right? What happened to her and her lover? Were they ever found?
You're getting ahead of me, monsieur.
I decided to suspend disbelief for the moment. After all, this is what I had come for, to delve into the secret of the Phantom.
This box was left to the Phantom's personal disposal for every performance, while the opera was under the management of Messieurs Debian and Coligny. Mere superstition, you might think. And so their successors believed, in spite of the stern written warnings sent by the Phantom when they audaciously sold this box to the public. I ask you, what semi-respectable, supernatural force would have the gall to demand the restitution of his box in the opera? And a monthly allowance of 20,000 francs, and in writing? The whole situation was preposterous, monsieur, and so the new managers believed. But the first performance, after this box was sold, tragedy struck. It was no accident, monsieur. No accident. Caused by the wear and tear of chains that the imbeciles concluded at the inquest. That chandelier weighs 7 tons, monsieur, and it is lowered every 2 months for a rigorous inspection. The chandelier did not fall of its own. Mercifully, I may say incredibly, only one patron was killed. But there were more acts of terrorism, monsieur. Many more. This is the manager's private office. They cooked a little plot in this very room in the vain hope of catching the Phantom red-handed. A press conference was called in the salon, and they proclaimed publicly that they would pay the Phantom his 20,000 franc goodwill fee. Well, they had to, monsieur, in order to sell tickets after the fateful incident of the chandelier. Monsieur Moncharmin, it was, who sealed the 20,000 franc before witnesses. Then he sneaked in here and, in the supposed privacy of his office, substituted the real 20,000 with fake banknotes. The envelope with the fake money was then placed in the box we've just come from for the Phantom to collect. A whole platoon of gendarmes surrounded the box, hidden from view, unseen by all. But the fake money was left untouched. one of the Phantom's many secret trapdoors hidden throughout the opera. You'll find a full account in the press, monsieur. The incident of the magic envelope.
So our Phantom has a sense of humor.
It was here, in front of a full house, that the Phantom conjured his most diabolical crime.
Does this involve Christine?
Oh, poor Christine. The Phantom was obsessed with her youth, her innocence. Through his endeavors, she was made understudy to the famous diva La Carlotta. He then made further despicable threats of doom and destruction, insisting that the management replace Carlotta with Christine. But Carlotta was a diva of the first order. She would sooner have died than surrendered the spotlight to a rival. Carlotta gave a performance. He had just finished the ballad to the King of Tulle to rapturous applause, when suddenly the vilest, toad-like, croaking noises rose from her velvet throat. She tried and tried, but could not continue. And so, Christine got her chance to shine. Now she was the toast of all Paris. And then the Phantom, insanely jealous of her tender affection and obsession to a young man, Raoul. She was singing the role of Margarita in Faust, when the stage was suddenly plunged into darkness. The orchestra continued to play. A murmur rose in the stalls. And when the gas at once lit the stage again, Christine had vanished. The police accused Raoul and his brother, the Comte Philippe, but no ordinary person could contrive an abduction like that. I alone recognized the monster's touch. And then, in a bizarre twist to the whole mysterious affair, the brother Philippe was found murdered by the lake in the cellars below. The price, my friend. For the Phantom's machinations, she unwittingly surrendered herself to his will. There are 1,000 hiding places in the catacombs.
This is an incredible story. I wanted to know if he made all this up, or was it documented fact?
Monsieur, I insist everything I tell you is in the public record.
Come on, LaRue, what happened to her?
Oh, my dear fellow, you'll have to read my book.
I wasn't sure whether I had actually seen him. And I didn't know where LaRue had disappeared to. But I had to know what happened to Christine. I had to see her again. Christine! 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 Christine, wait! Christine, wait! Christine! 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 Christine, wait! I won't move. I just want to talk to you. Christine, wait! Christine! Christine, wait! Christine! Christine, wait! She led me to the spot where she met her lover, Raoul. The roof of the opera was their secret meeting place. first time I understood perfectly the Phantom's jealousy. She was so beautiful, so hauntingly lovely. The Phantom did everything in his power to destroy their love for one another. And anybody else who came between him and Christine. They'd vanished, both of them. It was from that moment that I truly believed in the terrifying power of the Phantom. Looking back on my rooftop experience, I wondered who was this man who terrified all of Paris, who ruled the Paris Opera House, and who nearly sent me to my death on the roof. After my own recent experience, I now saw the Phantom as very different from the one conjured in the movies. After my encounter with Christine and the rooftop incident, my own feelings were sparked with fear. I knew now what the Phantom was capable of doing. Yet despite the danger, I was determined to discover more about the Phantom and his world. I made my way into the opera library, where I found what I'd been hunting for, the opera's file on Christine Day. From what I could make out, LaRue's account was correct in all the main details. Christine had been abducted the way he described it. Raoul, it appears, had been seen shortly after the abduction. But then he too had mysteriously disappeared, down into the cellars. I hadn't realized the awful scale of the suffering at the time the opera was being built. The invading Prussian army placed Paris under siege for 4.5 months. Close to 20,000 Parisians died in 1 month alone. The very real horror of the times gave me a new insight into the terrible, avenging character of the Phantom. When the French government finally capitulated to the Prussians, the armed workers of Paris, without bread, without jobs, without justice, formed their own government, the Paris Commune. What followed was the bloodiest page in France's turbulent history. Frenchmen burning Paris, Frenchmen murdering Frenchmen. Under the Communards, the opera was turned into a makeshift prison. The dank cellars below stage were crammed full, and terrible rumors abounded of massacres and wholesale torture. And all the while, within these same walls, lurked the Phantom. Every lead pointed to the cellars below. I took the architect's floor plan of the cellars, more convinced than ever before that the key to Christine's mysterious fate lies somewhere beneath the opera. I'd read about a passage, a shortcut the Communards had built especially to convey prisoners to the jails in the 5th cellar. The secret passage had to be somewhere near Christine's dressing room. I knew eventually it would lead me to the Phantom's lair. I could only imagine what might lie ahead of me. The Phantom. I knew I was getting close. reached the 5th level according to the plans. This had been the dungeons during the Commune. I could almost feel the dark despair of those poor devils entombed here, as if it were only yesterday. It was like a maze, passages branching at every turn. I kept thinking of the terrible accounts I'd read of the prisoners. How many had crawled out of here to feel the sun in their faces? How many had perished? I started to feel panicked. The idea grew that I might be lost and never get to see the daylight again myself.
My young friend, if seeking the truth is your pastime, it can be most dangerous.
I'm not turning back.
Drop this, monsieur, as you value your life. Nothing can restrain the Phantom's wrath, not even the Phantom himself. Haven't you seen enough?
I want to see where he lives.
Leave him down in his dark hole where he belongs. You risk the evil fury of the demon. My young friend. Strikes quick. Remember the dead stagehand. Watch for your neck. My rash young friend, you dare to unmask the Phantom, and I tell you, you risk your life. This is the Phantom's world. You cannot discover his secrets and expect to return. Never!
I couldn't turn back. I had to know what happened to Christine. I felt I could see the Phantom's face leering at me from every shadow, from every concealed corner. So many strange events had happened. I had to ignore LaRue's warning. First, there was the mysterious singing in the empty opera house. You expect to hear opera in an opera house, but not coming from an empty auditorium. Then Christine's appearance in the dressing room, looking so hauntingly beautiful. Just as I wanted to speak to her, she mysteriously vanished through the mirror. Then stumbling across the body of the stagehand, who apparently had been hanged, yet there was no sign of a noose. And LaRue's arrival on the scene. This really had me wondering if my imagination was playing fantastic tricks on me, or even if I was going crazy. Finally, the incident on the roof with Christine. Where for the first time I came to truly believe in the terrifying power of the Phantom. There had to be some power, some force behind all of these events. Despite LaRue's warning, I was determined to find the answer. Christine's necklace. Phantom's lair. Christine's dress. Christine's manuscript from her dressing room. his mask on an empty coffin. She was gone, gone with him beyond the grave. This all happened 100 years ago.
When will it end? Ask yourself. If the public know what you are searching for, if the public know you are searching for the Phantom, then pretty soon they will be searching for the Phantom themselves.
I had to get out of this mad dream while I still could.
And then they'll discover this place.
I had to get out.
And if the Phantom's secrets cease to be secret, it will be unspeakable suffering for you, for them, as it is for me.
Who was the Phantom? I was sure he was my assailant on the roof, but who was he? How could I disentangle the real man from the legend? Hoping to find some answers, I went back to LaRue's book. But my friend LaRue, in order to satisfy his publisher and the reading public of the day, turned his factual discoveries into highly sensationalized melodrama. According to LaRue, the Phantom was born hideously deformed in a small town not far from Rouen. He ran away at an early age, for his ugliness was a subject of horror and terror to his parents. He fell in with a traveling circus, where he was exhibited as the living corpse for years, all of which, not surprisingly, poisoned his veins with the most bitter contempt for humanity. But he'd learned the magician's art with these traveling shows and acquired his love of music from the gypsies. For years, he wandered from city to city, a lost soul. He returned to Paris, and like any ordinary building contractor, he applied for work at the new opera house. And the Phantom seized this opportunity to build himself a secret dwelling in the lowest cellar, where he could hide from men's eyes for all time. The majestic opera house overlooks bustling Paris, going about its daily business. Yet within its walls, the past lives, as real as the present. I've come to think of the great opera house like an old, veteran illusionist who seems unwilling to surrender her secrets. Every opera house has its ghosts, and Gaston Leroux supplied Paris with its own very special ghost in the form of the Phantom. By now, the Phantom legend has captivated the imagination of audiences all over the world for nearly 100 years. Encounters with the Phantom certainly leave their mark, as they did with me tonight. What happened to me here tonight? Was it a fantasy? Who knows? I'd like to believe that our journey into the secret of the Phantom took us closer to the truth behind the legend. What we do know is that in 1910, workmen digging in the substructure discovered a body that LaRue was certain had to be the mortal remains of the Phantom. Who knows? He could well have been right. And as for Christine, what actually happened to her, no one really knows. She was never found. The poor, unhappy Phantom. Shall we pity him? Shall we curse him? One thing's for sure. I don't doubt for a moment that somewhere, inside, in some dark, remote corner that only he knows, the Phantom or his spirit is lurking still, searching for the woman and the love he could never find.
Some people will do anything for a laugh. Tonight on America's Funniest People. Then, a look at the tragedies and triumphs of a man who changed the auto industry forever. Ford, the man and the machine. Tonight on CTV.